Hi, this is Wes from Wisely. The next breakout session of our Fundraising and Technology Expo is done by me, and we'll be talking about building and growing your mid-level giving programs. Now on to the content. So we are talking about building and growing our mid-level giving program. This may seem very complicated. There is a playbook at the end of this presentation that will make it very easy for you to understand exactly what to do. It's really about 4 steps. So why are we here today? And I want to go back to our very first presentation of the day, which was made by Liz, where she was talking about leadership and leading from where you stand. And I'm going to say, quote, Brian Herbert, who will likely become famous again when Dune ever makes theaters, science fiction writer. But he wrote, the capacity to learn is a gift, the ability to learn is a skill, the willingness to learn is a choice. And I think what we have here today are a lot of people who are willing to learn and have the ability to learn. So I am asking you to maybe take a walk in the rain with me today. Some stuff is going to be a little bit uncomfortable, but what we are doing is growing and expanding. So I hope you see this the same as me. We're here to get better, and sometimes we have to do things that we don't yet know how to do that well in order to achieve our goals. So our agenda, just to set expectations, mid-level giving, MLG, middle giving, what is it? Why should I do it? And how do I do it at my charity? That's the playbook piece that I've been talking about. And the rest of it is really setting the table to help you understand why we're doing it and why you'll have to tackle it a little bit differently than charity to charity. You can't do exactly what a university does if you're a hospice, for instance. But there are some very similar things that you will do, and understanding your audience and understanding the nuances of your charity and the demographics of mid-level givers will all help you make very good decisions as you go forward. So, why do I get to talk to you about this? I've been in fundraising for 20 years. I have previously built a number of quite successful mid-level giving programs that are still running today. I've worked at Sunnybrook, the University of Toronto, and through my work as in supporting fundraisers, have worked with some of the largest charities in Canada and the United States. I have also had the opportunity to work with many smaller fundraising organizations, and I love them. Like the difference between the big and the small. The big often has a lot of money to get something done. The small often has a lot of heart to get things done. And I love working with people with heart. One of the founders of Wisely, and I've just got to highlight my kids here because I'm so proud of them. Even though my son was chased with a dead squirrel today and sent me about 1,000 texts, even though I told him not to today. They still need me. They still care about me, and I have to show them off. So what is mid-level giving? We think about this as a bridge. And if anyone can actually identify this bridge, that would be pretty awesome. It's lit up in these particular colors for a reason. The reason, oddly enough, is charitable. And it was lit up purple for Parkinson's, I believe it is, who actually happens to be a client of ours. But it is the peace bridge between Canada and the United States. So I couldn't resist using this picture today, but mid-level giving is very much like that bridge. It is taking the donors that we talk about that we acquire, and we acquire donors at small amounts. And we have large donors, and these large donors are very engaged with us. Sometimes they're on our board or they're engaged with the board and our volunteers. And this is in part because they know lots about our organization. And the middle is often some sort of hybrid between the two, either intentionally or just quite frankly, it evolved that way by accident. So not unintentional versus intentional. And if this is the bridge between the two, how do we make sure that what we're doing makes sense, it's scalable and repeatable. For most organizations, mid-level giving starts at 1,000. But for some organizations, that mid-level $1,000 is such a significant donation. It is considered impactful, transformational. So we saw earlier today, there were hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of charities who are raising less than $30,000 a year. For them, $1,000 is game changing. But for the charities at the very top of that list, raising 5 million or 10 million, $1,000 is important, but not transformational. And I like to briefly define like major giving to be like, there is something is transforming the life of something. We talk about negotiation. Well, I'll use the word negotiation. When you're securing a major gift, there's often negotiation within your own organization. Can we actually accept this money and do what we think we can do with it? And there's negotiation on the donor to say, this is what we think we can do. And that donor wants maybe some oversight or a better understanding of exactly what's happening. On the other end of the spectrum, we acquire donors and we renew donors, making small gifts. That money's typically going to unrestricted. And we're using emotional letters, hopefully without too many statistics, right, Matt? Where we say we are making an impact in one person's life. So this is what we're trying to bridge. And I like to call it the missing middle. This is something that in higher education, we even talked about, in the early 2000s, it was a hot topic. It continues to be a hot topic today. And mass marketing is like, there is a way, okay, to run mass marketing. And it's often done through your mail, your email, you use social media to create these emotional responses in a one-to-many scenario. And then you attempt to improve your results. On major gifts, you're engaged with someone who has great capacity, who would like to do something transformational for your organization. And there is a way. And what is also true in mid-level giving is that there is a vault of money there. And that is going to be coming from both the people who are giving to your mass marketing campaign and to your major gift campaigns when they're not in a significant pledge. But the secret is, how do we open that? How do we start to engage with individuals in a way that seems extremely personal, but is more transactional in nature than a major gift? So it is truly one-to-one, but it's coming from a playbook that says, this is what I'm going to do. I know generally what our outcome is going to look like. And you're eliminating the friction of a major gift saying, there's no negotiation here. Okay, how do we unlock that revenue? So when we think of mid-level giving, it's pretty simple. We have larger gifts. For the purposes of today, let's say 500, 1,000, you're in that window. That's a mid-level gift for most organizations who are not raising, like if you're raising less than $10 million, let's say, those are mid-level gifts. They're relationship driven. Someone knows someone, and you don't know everything about them, but you know enough to have some conversations a couple times a year. Okay. There's light personal touches. What is a light personal touch? Well, if someone makes a gift, they receive a receipt. They often receive a thank you letter, so we go acknowledgement and a thank you. A light personal touch would be perhaps hand signing those. if that is a process that you can manage. And most certainly a phone call thank you. Like personal touch would also be having an insiders group. What's an insiders group? Well, this is the group that gets advance notice of stuff that the organization is doing. Okay. Maybe, you know, after your board, but before the public. It also will provide a pipeline to major gifts. And I didn't talk about this, I think, enough earlier. But most donors who you acquire, even if we look at those major gift donors that you have today, most of those donors, and to the tune of 3/4, that's an average, 3/4 of your current major gift donors, if you look back at their origin, had a first gift that was either, you know, attending a small event gift, or an annual gift, a direct marketing gift. 3/4 of those donors came from your donor pool and your acquisition campaigns. So by moving them into mid-level giving, you're accelerating the pace of that advanced relationship. Okay. And we're going to make that somewhat transactional. So we're not always negotiating. We're not always creating custom proposals and doing, you know, writing novels about what this gift is going to do. So why do we focus in on mid-level giving? There's so many things that we can work on. Honestly, I've worked in charities for 20 years. There is never ending supply of problems that we need to solve. And, you know, that comes from the idea that we wear many hats. So let me tell you, we need to maximize revenue. This is something that we all hear about. How do we get more donors? How do we get larger gifts? Well, let's start with retaining our donors. Let's attract them with good stewardship and personalization. And while we can't do that for every donor, we can certainly do it for a segment of donors. Let's increase our gift sizes. Every fundraiser has heard this concept of like, well, if everyone just gave us an extra $20, it'd be really amazing. Okay, we can make this happen on purpose with a segment of your audience. And, you know, like the unicorn of it, we need more major gift donors. I've never heard an organization say we have too many major gift donors. That's not true. I did hear it once. But, you know, outside of that one unicorn, there are real challenges to say we need more major gift donors. They just don't fall out of trees. So really important concept here about middle class. And all this data comes from the United States. Most of it is pretty new. Some of it is a couple years old. But looking at the wealth by percentile group, if we talk about the profile of a major gift donor, and we need every organization needs more major gift donors. And the most common way of finding major gift donors is looking at wealth screens, let's say, a wealth screening tool. Or you recognize the name because they own a gold company, or they run construction in your town or city. They got oil rigs for our friends in Calgary, although I guess maybe they're not donating right now. So what we're looking at in this top bar here, let me get my, let's choose a pen. Okay, what we're looking at in this, is it working? It's not working. Let's try a highlighter. Okay, that's working a little bit. So what we're looking at in this section here, all right, I give up. The top green, that top 1% represents a tremendous amount of wealth in America. And this holds true for Canada as well, by the way. And those top 1% is really what wealth screening is going to identify for you. The next 10% also represents about the same amount of wealth as the top 1%. And a good chunk of those can be identified with wealth screening. But when we start to break that down a little bit more, we know mid-level givers are often people who care about your organization and have what I'd say generally middle class. It's not working. It's not working. It's really upset. Laser pointer. Is that working? Okay, so middle class here, this 50% of America's population fits in the middle class. And the majority of those people have the ability to be your mid-level giving donors. If you're doing wealth screening there, you are basically eliminating anyone in the middle class. So what we want to then focus in on is donor behavior. And we're going to talk about that when we get to our audience. What are some of those donor behaviors that will lend themselves to be good mid-level giving donors? And like just looking at this, the income by tier, $78,000 US in most areas of America make people pretty wealthy, generally speaking. They have some disposable income. And to the tune of, can they make a $500 or $1,000 donation every single year? You bet. So well over half your potential mid-level giving donors won't even pass a wealth screen. So how do we start to build that audience in a way that makes sense, is scalable, and can help you pick out some of those major gift donors? A major gift donor, by the way, can be a middle-class family making their lifetime gift.
Wes,
yes.
Just before you continue on, I actually have a question, just like myself. I'm curious, like your thoughts on, and I should prefix this just saying, I believe we're kind of in a K-shaped recovery. The richer are getting richer, and the poor are getting poorer. I just think, people in the pandemic, particularly, there's a lot of people who have done much better, who were already kind of well off to begin with. I'm just kind of curious on if that kind of changes your line of thinking, kind of in regards to the wealth screen, and if maybe just what are your thoughts on how that'll affect mid-level giving, just as kind of a whole, just given kind of the state we're in, or if you even necessarily disagree with kind of the K-shape in general.
No, I definitely. What is for certain is that top 1% have created more wealth in the last 9 months than they have in the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And so that much is certainly true. The middle class are certainly two stories here. There's the stories of people who can work from home, and the stories of people who can't, or industries that have been, like if you work in hospitality or tourism, it's been a tough go, where previously you might have done quite well. So yeah, certainly that holds true. But the overriding factor is that donors want to help. And, we really saw this at the beginning of the pandemic. In particular, I might highlight some of the work that my wife is doing. She works at a hospital foundation, and they immediately started wondering, like, what's going to happen? Like everything's locked down. Do people have money? Can they support us? Like, we actually need help. And the reality was, while some people weren't able to assist financially, other groups, and like my household fits into this, we're actually spending less money. We're spending less money today, and our income hasn't changed. So, we actually have the ability to make slightly larger gifts to help out the people who don't have it. And even looking at, I read something about Germany, just as an aside. They're proposing a 5% tax on people who could work from home to help fund the recovery for people who can't. And it's actually quite a nice idea, although I'd hate to pay more tax. The idea that we get to help people do these types of things, is just an indication of like how people want to help out. And I suspect that any negatives around your audience would be offset by the positives, give or take.
Yeah, that's well said. We just have one other question kind of in regards to that. What would be maybe the different wealth indicators to identify somebody who's already to make a major gift, like who's already a major gift prospect versus kind of mid-level giving? Do you think mid-level giving is always the bridge for all donors? And maybe how should people view that just in kind of regards to growing their mid-level and then hopefully their major kind of giving program as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you a very brief story. At a hospital foundation that I worked at, we launched a mid-level giving program through concierge, which we'll talk about later. The interesting thing that we encountered is that some of these people who didn't pass our screening tests for major gifts started showing up with, quite frankly, like major gift money. And like I remember one instance where a guy showed up with a bunch of gold he didn't really know what to do with, so he decided to give it to us because we engaged with him. So that ended up being, give or take, like $120,000 worth of gold, which isn't a lot. Gold wafers, just if I can talk about them for a minute, I love them. They're super small and unbelievably heavy for the size. But so if you get to accept gold wafers in your career, that's a bonus. But talking about some of those indicators, liquidity is important, net worth is important, and depending on who you are, like liquidity, you want to look at for more for mid-level versus major, and then net worth is a really interesting statistic to use to value sort of like the target amounts for a major gift prospect. And Liz, who was on the line earlier, is sort of like one of the leading experts on very specifically that item. And historically, there was sort of like you could kind of target a 5% as like a lifetime gift, major gift from someone. And what we discussed earlier this year with Liz and her board of sort of like these prospect researchers is that's probably not as true as it used to be, but it's a fine place to start. So if you actually can make an estimate on someone's net worth, sort of like the maximum gift that they would make would be between 1% and 5% of it. Did I answer that question?
I think so. I'll open it up in case Melrose here or wants to kind of just follow up. But yeah, I think for now that kind of answers that kind of prospecting question.
Yeah, perfect. On mid-level giving, and this is very specific to right now, but it is great for remote. You do not need to meet with donors to run your mid-level giving program, although what we're doing here would be pretty effective, including some virtual events or sort of like what I'd call web calls. What do you need? You need a phone, you need some email, and you need to have like some things on hand to talk about. So from the perspective of doing this remotely, you can look at any of your event people that may be trying to figure out how do they reinvigorate what they do, and or if you only have in-person events, these people know your organization really quite well and they know how to talk to people. Having them go have a go at mid-level giving programs is really a wonderful idea. So looking at, why do we want to actually look at mid-level giving? You get to grow your donation revenue. You're going to build new relationships. You will find new major gift donors. Probably not, you're not going to have that person show up with gold in your first year. I got super lucky. But you will find major gift donors. There is a large audience for you to tap. Okay, I would estimate that of your potential mid-level giving donors, probably represents up to 20% of your fundraising audience. And this one's really important. Like I like to think of things and make things that are scalable. And what starts to become scalable is that if you have your donors who are used to being asked personally for a gift, and if you have staff that are actually doing that with their their portfolio or donors, you end up in a really good situation where your donors and your organization are both growing. And when that happens, good things will come of it. It's like building that capacity in your donors and your staff is incredibly important from a scalability standpoint, not just for today, but for your future. So looking at your, your program, how do we start that fire? And it really just starts with a little spark. And if you do lots of little sparks with your donors, you're going to end up with some flames. And I'm certainly not going to sit here and tell you that every donor that you start to indoctrinate into your mid-level giving program will actually become a true mid-level giving donor or even become a major gift donor. But what I will say is that if you do enough of them, some of them will. And once you have some, you have something to build upon. So the thing that we want to talk about is that, here's a saying like, the grass is greenest where you water it. And if you're paying attention to your donors and you're watering your lawn and you're looking after it, your lawn is going to be lush and good. Okay. And we want our mid-level giving program people to feel like they've been watered and they've been cared for. So it's a pretty simple concept. Let's pay attention to people and we'll grow some nice grass. So the plan outline, we've got 5 points here. The very first thing, white glove service. We'll spend a couple minutes talking about that. Defining our audience, getting into stewardship, engaging our donors and asking for support. This should come as no surprise. Looking at this white glove service, I want you to think about this as like a hotel concierge. If you have, you go into a hotel, it's nice to be able to ask someone for some advice. I've never been to the city. What restaurants are good around here? I don't like seafood. I like steak, right? All of a sudden that concierge is going to learn a little bit about you and be able to point you in that right direction. And I want you to think about your mid-level giving program in the very same way. So why does that concierge exist? To make sure that you have a good stay at the hotel. They're not sitting down to have dinner with you. They're just pointing you in the right direction. And that's what we should be doing in these more transactional interactions. And people give to people is, we don't say that enough. Alex had said it in his storytelling. Matthew said it in the copy directions that he had pointed out. Make it about the person. Don't make it about the stats. That is so true here. We are looking at connecting with people, learning who each other are, and then moving forward with that. So what is a concierge? I think I've just explained it. Really important. A donor has a dedicated person to go to. They know someone at that organization. Everyone at your organization can actually have a handful of people. They don't have to be, your executive director or the director of development. It can be anyone at your organization. They can have a small portfolio. Oh, you have a question? I'm calling up Matthew, my donor concierge, right? It is someone that they know, and they're like, "What's going on with this? Like, I thought we were doing something different, or I read about you guys in the news. Like, is everything okay? Can I help?" That will actually happen, right? If it's about people. And what you want to do with this audience is make them feel like they're a part of your family. They're a part of your club, if you will. And in order to do that, you have to give them stuff. And it doesn't have to be anything of monetary value, but it should be emotional or intellectual value. So what is happening in my organization? You get our insider newsletter. That is only for mid-level giving donors. You get to see our newsletter. It could be the same newsletter. You retitle it Insider and send it a day early. Or we have press releases, and like we're going to send you all our press releases. This is stuff that you do anyway. Just package it up a little bit nicer for this group so that they feel engaged and part of it. If you can, holiday cards, right? And another way to figure out maybe what you want to do is look what you do for your major gift donors and see what you can replicate very easily for that group. And you don't want to overpromise on this. So if you promise that you're going to do all this stuff for a mid-level gift and then you aren't able to follow through, all of a sudden that donor feels let down, like you don't care for them, even though you tried to actually do all the things that you said you're going to do. So just make sure that you're able to follow through on what being a concierge at your organization means. Defining the audience. Like honestly, I like to think a little piece of this is magic, and wisely, my company is really good at identifying who should belong in your mid-level giving donor audience, but you don't have to use us. You can just use your CRM. So to get it started, literally just look at half your threshold. So if your threshold is $1,000, take everyone from 500 to 5,000, call them up. If you're able to reach them, you can accept them into your portfolio as your donor concierge and thank them for their gift, right? So we've got that audience. Your past major gift donors are awesome mid-level giving prospects. Oh, someone made a $25,000 gift 10 years ago and haven't given since. Well, maybe $1,000 works or $500 works. Can we get you back in? You've had an impact in our organization before. Let's do it again. Sometimes organizations just exclude any major gift donor from anything, which is a mistake. They gave last year or this year. They've been loyal donors. So if someone's given 3+ years, you may want to add those people to your group, but really just start right at the top saying, okay, if I can handle a dedicated mid-level giving officer, if this is the direction that you're going, can probably handle up to 300 or 400 people pretty effectively. Ineffectively, they can maybe manage 1,000, right? So keep going until you're full. So your monthly donors also can make wonderful mid-level giving donors. Well, Matthew, if you were able to help out a little bit more on your monthly gift and go from $20 a month to $45, $44 or $88 a month, you can be part of our special club. And I would love to be able to, get you all that insider information. It's a reason to upgrade, but also for a reason for Matthew or these monthly donor prospects to actually start to think about increasing their gift. One place I want you to be careful about, in particular, tribute donors. They can be a little bit tricky. I know we've got some people from hospices attached to this, and you would probably know this better than I would, but you do have to be a little bit careful with your tribute donors. They are a different audience. Make sure you understand them before you include them. And peer-to-peer donors, you may spin your wheels. Test it out. So if I pledge to you because of, Pugaween, which happened recently in my neighborhood, where people dressed up their pugs and secured donations for the animal shelter. So if I gave to Pugaween, I may not actually care about your organization the same way as if I gave a regular donation. So just make sure you understand the economics of it. So what are we doing now? We're talking about stewardship. And this is actually pretty simple again. we're 3 contact points I recommend. Your first is your receipt and acknowledgement. Included in the receipt is a thank you letter. This is normal process for almost every organization. I make a gift online, I make a gift offline. I'm getting a letter saying, hey, thank you, you're amazing. We need your help, and with your help, we do all these great things. And then the actual like tax credit or tax receipt attached to it. That is an acknowledgement. All right. Now we need to thank the donor. And to thank the donor, we need to do something a little bit more personal. So all of a sudden, you're elevating this person's experience with your organization. You're differentiating yourself from other charities. And you're saying, we got a thank you card for this person. I had almost a hand-typed letter from a donor concierge via email. And some sort of like mass version of it. So that's easy. It doesn't break your process. You don't want there to be a long time between the acknowledgement and a thank you. But most important is an interactive thanks. So an interactive thanks is quite easy to do if you listen. So the first thing that will happen when you do that is, well, I mean, I can do it with Matt here, but the reality is, when you reach out to someone, they're going to say, well, let's see. The first thing that they're going to say is, how I don't want to talk to you. I just made a gift. I'm worried you're going to ask for money again. And like, I just helped you. That is the sentiment of the first 20 seconds of every call you make as you start. Once people are used to talking to you, that will be very different. But literally, you're going to get very good if you're building up this audience for yourself at saying, oh no, I literally am just calling to say thank you. I know you made your gift. I wanted to introduce myself as, and you get to name this as your mid-level giving program concierge, or your donor concierge, or the person, your point person at our organization. And that will start to relax people a little bit. And once they're a little bit more relaxed, there's something that is incredibly important to say, what motivated you to make that gift? Critically, after that, you have to stop and listen. The stories that people will tell you are first often extremely inspiring. Okay. Second, they're telling you, using their own words, indicators of wealth, whether or not they would like to give again, and what they care about within your organization. So when you have that information, you all of a sudden know way more about that donor than you did just a couple minutes before. I like to call that discovery. And you don't often get to do a discovery wrapped up in a thank you. Okay. When the donor vocalizes all those things, it reaffirms why they gave to you in the first place. And it very much improves your chance of securing a next gift from them. We've also run a little bit of human intervention into a behavior. So if we think of giving as a behavior, we now have the ability to look at that behavior and say, well, we'd like to change it a little bit. Instead of giving us $50 every year, I want you to give $500. And a 10 times increase like that doesn't happen if you change a gift matrix. Probably learn that it greatly reduces your response rate and your ROI on your mailing. But when you do it interactively, you have the ability on the fly to have those conversations. Now, on that first call and saying thank you, maybe someone will offer you a gift and I don't even know if you should take it. And you, under no circumstances, will entertain any silly thought that you may have at that moment to ask for more money. Even if they're like, they tell you, I got more money to give. Because if you ask for money on a stewardship call, that is a solicitation. It is not proper stewardship. Okay, that's my soapbox there. So then now that we've engaged with good stewardship, like what we want to do then is start asking for support. And we like to ask for support when people like to give. If you don't have something, here's a Wisely plug like Wisely that tells you when people will give, you kind of want to follow a rule of thumb like, well, when did they do it last time? You know, Wes, I like to give in October, and I like to give in December. So, you know, maybe I'll start talking to Wes in October about his next gift. Maybe he'll make it immediately. Maybe he'll sit on it until December. Okay. Now, the other thing that we really want to consider is that confidence that we present when we're asking. If you're, well, maybe would you like to, we're doing this interesting thing, and I don't know, would you like to maybe support it? It's very different than someone who says like, listen, you supported us before. We have a great initiative going. I'm wondering if you'd like to step up and join us in conquering this problem together. You know, it's going to be a journey. Your gift won't solve it, but it is going to make someone's life a lot better today. You get our materials. And you know, here's an aside, make sure that these people are still getting your other materials, right? All of that stuff that agencies like Frontier do, or the emotional things that they're seeing through social media or advertising or however you do that, help build the need of your organization in the mind of your donor. So when you're doing these calls, it's just a nudge and that human piece that allows you to encourage these donors to make a decision. And when you think about like, what are you going to say? Write some scripts. Don't read them. Your mid-level giving program is not telemarketing. Your mid-level giving program is a conversation with your most dear audience. If it doesn't feel like you know them, they will respond accordingly. Okay, which is why it's super important to code everything in your CRM so you can remember that person the next time you talk to them. I said this before, don't overpromise. We get nervous when we're on these calls. I get nervous when I'm on these calls. And if you overpromise, you are going to disappoint that donor. If they ask you a question you can't answer, or you don't know the answer to, don't answer it. Say, I'll get back to you. These are normal things, and you don't have to have all the answers right there. Remember, think of it like you're talking to a friend's parent about something that they want to do, and you're just helping them figure out what it is. Like that level of formality is about right for most donors and most organizations. So getting it done, we talked about really like, who are we going to target? What are we going to do? All of that conceptually is pretty easy. The hard part is doing it at scale. So follow a process is being so important, so that if you're not following the process, you spend a lot of time figuring out, what do I need to do with this donor now? As opposed to always understanding what the next step is for each one of your donors in your portfolio. Okay. And you don't always have to have a next action for every donor at every conversation or touch point, but even understanding what that general flow is makes it really easy for you to do your job. And you go from managing 5 or 10 donors to being able to manage 100 without any real issue. Okay. Megan today showed us action tracks and Sumac. Most CRMs support some version of that. Wisely supports it as well. Record your interactions so that you can go back, especially now when you're not doing a lot of the stuff in person. I find remembering stuff in person to be much easier than remembering a phone call that I might have made or a Zoom. Those blend together more often. And go for meetings. This is a meeting of sorts, but a meeting is an intentional time to talk about something. It's not catching someone off guard on the phone. That means that you're prepared, but also the donor's prepared for that conversation. People generally know if you want to set up a meeting, what it's about. If they decline, that's great. That means you're not wasting any time with that donor. And if someone declines a meeting, say, that's great. I'm always here for you. And you know they're going to get that next annual package, right? Where they can give like they normally do. And make sure you have some content on hand, your case for support as an organization. People often will say, yes, but I want to take a look at something. So make it very easy for yourself to get them something in the mail or on email that demonstrates why they would support your organization. And sort of the last piece on this is like, I don't want you to create more content processes. You got to just, especially when we talk about like, you've got an existing process for acknowledgements, don't break that. Maybe find a way to enhance it a little bit to take into account what you want to do with mid-level giving, but don't break it. I worked at an organization where or anyone really over $1,000, it took an additional 23 days on average to get those thank yous out because you wanted to do something special. Don't follow that road. It's not the right road. We fixed it. But the idea is fit into that process. Don't add gum to the process. And really with that, I'm going to recap, say thank you, give you an opportunity for questions, and I feel like I powered through that in about the right time. Maximize your donor revenue. Why, you're going back to your desk, you're going to lead from where you stand. What are you going to do? I need to maximize our donor revenue. We need more money to save puppies, cure cancer, crush COVID, whatever it happens to be. Okay. This is a good way to do it. And there's this is a proven methodology that's not hard. Just interact with more people and have a process attached to it. When you're looking at mid-level giving, don't depend on wealth screening. Look at donor behavior. Once you cross that hurdle, you're going to start with stewardship. No one likes to be handed a list or be given a list in a CRM or whatever it is that says, go call and ask all these people for money. They don't like it because it isn't right. It's not comfortable. It's not comfortable for either party. So go thank people for their gift. That's easy and that's fun. And all of a sudden, once you know people and you know what people are going to say, asking for money becomes a heck of a lot easier for both sides. Okay. That white glove service, as soon as you have a human being on the other end of a charity, you'll find that those people will get gifts, whether they ask or not. They're just going to come to that person. Like, oh, I wanted to make my gift. Do I make that to you? And all of a sudden you're in a conversation initiated by the donor for a gift. Okay. And then following a process and get that process established and easy, simple. Don't gum up your other stuff, but make sure that you know what you're doing to manage that process, and use your CRM and consider using Wisely because we can help you do that too. But you don't need us to do this. And with that, I'll say thank you.